Oh my goodness, we have finally seen gameplay, actual real gameplay of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. E3 is officially kicking off, and this gameplay, I'm going to tell you guys, totally delivered. So naturally, I was excited to talk about this because Star Wars is my jam, which I know you've heard me say 1,000 times before. I was very, very excited to finally see what this game was going to be. Ever since we first learned what Respawn was making in the Star Wars universe under the unfortunate EA banner, I was so hyped because they were telling a story in a time period I'm very interested in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. I absolutely love that. And then, of course, they told us that we're following a Jedi after the events and the fallout of Order 66, which of course was one of the main cruxes of, turning the Republic into the Empire in Revenge of the Sith. Loved that idea, absolutely thought that was a perfect video game story to tell, and it was something that in the video game world for Star Wars, we desperately needed. Like a drink of water in the desert, we needed something like this. Story-based, lore-based, Jedi-based, lightsabers, the Force, all that good stuff. We've been dying for something like this in Star Wars for way too long in the video game space. That's been the issue. I mean, you can see I've got the two current-gen Battlefront games from EA here, and, they're okay. There's a lot of disappointment between the two games. There is some good. Battlefront 2 has eventually turned into a pretty rock-solid experience, but we all know the issues. Like, there's been so many issues with these games. Bad business practices, a lack of content, a lack of depth in story, and all that stuff is definitely very much true. And getting this game at this time just feels right. So after the game's first reveal at Star Wars Celebration a couple of months ago, where they only showed us a CG story-based trailer, we finally got the gameplay today, and it was 15 minutes uninterrupted of gameplay of this game. And, if you can't tell, I'm elated, man. I loved what I saw. They nailed it just like I wanted to believe. And I put all of the credit of nailing this on Respawn. I don't think it has much to do with EA. I mean, I'm sorry, EA. I just can't trust or believe in you yet. You've got to go many years without a goof before any of us start to trust you again. Many years and many game releases, I should say. But when we look at just what we've seen here, it seems like Respawn is nailing it. Now, what I will say is something that I've been theorizing for the past couple of months since this game was revealed at Star Wars Celebration. I firmly believe that what Star Wars 1313 was has turned into this game. It looks exactly like I pictured it would, which is just like what Star Wars 1313 looked like in that little bit of gameplay that we've seen and I featured on my channel recently. It's exactly that. Instead of being a character on Coruscant with a gun, you're a character with a lightsaber in all sorts of planets in the galaxy. And it looks like the same assets, the same engine, the same overall approach to what was happening with Star Wars 1313. So that's my personal theory. I'm sure eventually we'll get that confirmed one way or another, but that's what it looked like to me. And what we saw was just perfect, man. You're just a character with a lightsaber using the Force in the Star Wars universe, running around killing people with your lightsaber. I mean, it's just perfect. I love the decision to feature this gameplay demo on the planet of Kashyyyk, which is, of course, the Wookiee home planet that we also saw in Revenge of the Sith, and was also featured in Battlefront 2 here. I loved that choice. Nice to see the Wookiees. Nice to see Kashyyyk a little bit more in depth than just kind of on the beachfront that you see in Episode 3. And one of the coolest things in the beginning is the reveal of Saw Gerrera. Very cool to see Saw Gerrera, the Forrest Whitaker Rogue One version of Saw Gerrera in this. I would have preferred... Well, okay, I'm going to wait to get into that part, because that kind of delves into one of the big negatives I took away from this. But before I get into the negatives, it was cool to see something that's very much a connective tissue and a connective sinew to the overall larger story and lore and film plot of the movies. So very, very cool to see that. Looking a little bit young. You probably noticed Saw Gerrera definitely looked a little bit younger than we see in Rogue One, which makes sense. Gives us an idea of the time frame here. And, you're trying to go free some Wookiees, and he's fighting stormtroopers left and right. And, you look at the combat, it's exactly what you would want, I think, out of a current-gen lightsaber combat game and gameplay. It's just swinging, kicking ass, man, using a lot of the Force And I have to say, probably my favorite thing in this is the Force battle moves. The way he uses the Force to do all sorts of things while fighting blew me away. I mean, when he came up on those first few stormtroopers and he kills the first couple, just dispatches them quickly with his lightsaber because get out of here, you dumb. And then he takes that one and he does the Force and brings him right to him and he slashes him as he brings him to him. I almost hopped out of my chair, you guys. I was like, oh, that was amazing. And then we saw him use stuff where he's like slowing down time and he's using the thing that Kylo Ren uses, that Force freeze move, where he freezes the blaster bolt in midair and walks around it. And then at the very, very end, he does that where he freezes a blaster bolt and then he's got he's using the Force to hold a stormtrooper and he walks the stormtrooper into the freaking blaster bolt. Oh, it was so cool. I was like, yes, give me all of that good stuff. I thought it was just amazing. So the lightsaber combat, very fluid, very fast. Seems like there's a lot of moves, a lot of throwing your lightsaber back and catching it, which we've seen in plenty of games and stuff as well. Darth Vader does that in Return of the Jedi and stuff. So really, really cool to see that. I very much enjoyed it. One of the coolest moments, and I was hoping that they would do this, and I'm glad that they did, is they showed him showing off with a more powerful enemy that's actually able to, like, deflect and parry his lightsaber blows. Because there is something to be said for being somebody with a lightsaber and just easily decimating everyone in your path because stormtroopers are dumb and regular people can't combat a lightsaber. And so you get that, which is very satisfying to be able to run around and just kill people. But at some point, you want something a little bit more tactical and organic. And so they introduced what I think is the Purge Trooper. And they talked about the Purge Trooper at Celebration, something that I loved. The concept of the Purge Trooper is like one of the coolest things to me. And for those who aren't familiar, that is a brand new thing. That is a new creation, a new sect of trooper, I should say, that they've created for this game and this story in this time period of Star Wars. So really neat to see that. And and again, like the black armored guys that are really big and have like the big staff with like the electric things. I'm like 99% sure that those were Purge Troopers. So, you know, he gets in a battle with the Purge Trooper and it's great because you're just trying to win this battle. It's not just easily killing mindless enemies. It's actually trying to be good at the combat and overcome a tough enemy. And it looked, again, just like you would want for the most part. And again, these Force battle moves came in where he's Force pushing the guy or girl. I couldn't tell what it was. He's Force pushing the Purge Trooper. And like it gets pushed back and he digs the thing in and it like slides back as he's trying to hold himself in place from the Force. It's like, oh, give me that stuff. Also, something I loved seeing was when he kind of got out of the main like little like I don't know, like warehouse building, like whatever the actual like building was. And then he's outside and he's fighting like these indigenous big spider creatures. And it's like, yeah, give us some aliens, give us some of the organic stuff that shows us like you're on an actual living planet in the Star Wars universe. Interact with that, fight that. Don't just fight humans in suits. Like in the whole Disney era, whether it's been the books, the movies, video games, whatever, we aren't seeing enough aliens. We're just not getting enough of that. That's something that they haven't understood after the George Lucas era, which is my favorite era. The original 6 movies is what I live and breathe when it comes to Star Wars. The new stuff is good and fine, but it's not really there. And I think one of the things we've been missing is that. And so seeing in this video game, seeing Cal start to interact with some of like the indigenous big crazy alien kind of monsters of the planet, that was cool to me. And so seeing that tells me that they really do kind of understand the lore and the universe that they're playing in. And so I just hope that there's a lot of that in this game. I don't want it to be just a small part of this game and one part in one level on one planet. I mean, if they really want to deliver this properly, there will be a lot of that throughout this game, and wherever in the galaxy Cal has to go on his story and on his journey, hopefully we see a lot of that. Now, if I want to get into like one of the huge and only negatives that I have, it's the fact that what it seems like they've obviously done here is, even though this is a post-Order 66 game, and that's even how Vince Zampella introduced it, it's definitely closer to, I think, Episode 4 and the original trilogy than it is Episode 3 and the prequel trilogy. And, like, that's fine, and that's great because, you know, we all love the original trilogy, we love Stormtroopers, we love all that stuff, and that's great. But I think that we're seeing a little bit of an over-reliance on the original trilogy look and feel and vibe and stories. And it's not that I don't love that, but I think that we need a little bit more variety. And I am a huge prequel trilogy fan. I live and die and will defend to the death the prequel trilogy. All 3 of those movies, all those stories, all those characters, blemishes and all, I love them. And I think that this game being post-Order 66 and telling this story during the Jedi Purge, as Jedi are trying to hide from what should be Darth Vader and the Empire, by the way, I would have liked to see this game actually like really commit to that and really dive deep into that and not be afraid to show, let's make this more of a prequel trilogy tone and vibe than an original trilogy. And so seeing stormtroopers with normal voices just walking around being stormtroopers, and you get Saw Gerrera, which means we're, you know, the Forrest Whitaker version, meaning we're closer to OT than not. It's like, okay, you're just relying again on the same old Empire, the same old stormtroopers. And it's like, come on, guys, don't fall into that crutch. Don't fall into that trap. This game, in my opinion, to have truly nailed what they're trying to do would have been in the immediate aftermath of Order 66 and Revenge of the Sith, and hopefully in just the first 1 to 5 years after Revenge of the Sith. And so I would have liked to see this before all of the clone troopers eventually turned into the stormtroopers. I think that these should have been clone troopers. I would have loved something, or maybe something that's more of a merging between clone trooper and stormtrooper, because that they don't turn into stormtroopers overnight. That takes some time. And I think that we should have seen clone troopers that sound like Jango Fett instead of stormtroopers that sound like all of the regular non-accent having people in the original trilogy, where they're just like, oh, over there's a guy, we gotta get him, what's going on here, I don't really know. That's a stormtrooper. But Jango Fett, who is all the clone troopers are cloned from, he's got that accent, he has that specific feel, and like, you know, they nailed that with the clone troopers in Battlefront 2. They got the perfect voice actor, the guy I think who probably voiced everyone, I'm forgetting his name, in the Clone Wars show, who sounds like Jango Fett, as he should. And so I have to say that it's not that they've gotten it wrong in the timeline, it's that I think they chose the wrong time to tell this story. I wish it wasn't so far past Revenge of the Sith that we're almost into A New Hope. This should have been closer to Revenge of the Sith, and I would have loved that more kind of vibrant and shiny sort of prequel trilogy vibe, as everything slowly turns into the grimy, dirty, Empire-destroyed future of the original trilogy. And so, you know, that's just how I feel. It's like more stormtroopers. I would have preferred clone troopers, and I would have preferred something that felt like, you know, what did the galaxy and Coruscant and the Republic, how did they react immediately following everything that happened at the end of Revenge of the Sith? Darth Vader being created, Anakin turning, Palpatine defeating Yoda, destroying the Senate, turning the Republic into the Empire, Order 66 wiping out the Jedi. Like, that's one of the best moments in the entire Star Wars saga. And they set this game up to be that when they first described what it was. And we see it's just basically another original trilogy game. As far as everything is concerned on the surface, it's just an original trilogy era. That's just what it is. And it's like, you tell us it's post-Order 66, but you're not really showing us that that's the story you're telling. We're so far removed from that it's basically just going to be Rebels and Empire probably, and he's just one of the few Jedi out there trying to avoid being killed by the Empire. And so, you know, it doesn't kill the game for me, and it doesn't kill my hype, really, because it just looks so fantastic. But as far as the story, which is a huge reason this game should be good, it's a massive missed opportunity. But if we are back on the positive side a little bit, as I was just hinting at, that means that there's an opportunity in this game, you guys, for us to see Darth Vader. In fact, I would be shocked if Darth Vader or even Palpatine didn't make some kind of appearance. It probably would just be like a cameo or something like that, like maybe in a cutscene, like through a hologram. But they should be present. You know, this is a time where Darth Vader was the one who was leading the charge of the Empire to hunt down and destroy the Jedi. Darth Vader was first-hand involved in hunting down Jedi. Cal is a Jedi hiding from the Empire in this period after Order 66, where he can't let people know he is a Jedi because the Jedi are basically the enemy of the Republic, the enemy of the Empire. So it would be great if we see some Darth Vader action in this game, you guys. Like, I think there's a chance they're going to do that. In fact, I think they would be hard-pressed to resist the opportunity to put Darth Vader here, especially if they can't freaking cut the umbilical of the original trilogy anyway. You might as well go further in and at least give us freaking Darth Vader. Like, maybe he's the final boss of this game, is like Cal versus Darth Vader. And spoiler alert, he would probably have to lose, I would think, to be in line with the movies. But who knows what they would do, man. I love that. And when we get back to the demo, the last thing here, I'll end this here when it comes to the demo, is I like the fact that they made sure to show just a regular person playing the game. I think that demos in E3 over the years have fallen into the trap of being clearly pre-planned, pre-animated. They're trying to tell you it's normal, organic gameplay, and they have someone faking holding a controller, and they just flawlessly run through it like it's a cinematic. You know, the Uncharted games have had that problem ever since they've been at E3. And I like that they showed somebody who just was obviously fighting and failing, and you see some of those awkward animations of a video game character. Like, I actually prefer that to seeing something be perfect. I absolutely prefer that, and I love that they did that here. And so overall, I'm hyped. I'm very satisfied. If you can't tell, I'm just gushing to you guys here. This game, so far, is looking like it's delivering. It's everything and I know a lot of you want this game to be. And you know, they keep doubling down. It's single player, it's story focused. That means there shouldn't be multiplayer, which means there should not be microtransactions. DLC down the road is totally okay. Microtransactions, loot boxes, and a forced multiplayer component, that's what we don't want. And right before they showed the gameplay, Vince Zampella said it's a single player game. That's what he said. And so if they maintain all of this good stuff up until the release, they've nailed it. They've totally nailed it. Even, you know, the Stormtrooper, Clone Trooper mistake aside, they've nailed everything else, and I don't really care about that issue because the game looks great, the story looks great, the combat looks great. It's just everything that I think it needs to be. So I can't wait to see more. I would like to see some stuff, hopefully on other planets. I'd like to see Coruscant. I'd like to see Naboo. I'd like to see Endor, Mustafar, new planets, like whatever they're going to do. I hope this is a huge, massive adventure. And they showed us skill points, so there's obviously an upgrade tree, which makes sense. There's probably 1,000 moves you're going to be able to unlock using your lightsaber. Cal seems like he's going to be a pretty decent Jedi addition. Oh, one more thing I wanted to touch on. When Greg Miller asked them about, you know, if you're going to be able to go light side or dark side, and they said no. They said you absolutely are not. That was the perfect answer. Anyone disappointed by that? I think you're maybe coming at this game with the wrong approach. I like the fact that they're just telling a story. I don't need every game to have a Mass Effect branching path and a good or bad. Like, we don't need that here. Cal is supposed to be a Jedi, and so I like that he's just a Jedi. If you're a Jedi, you use the light side of the Force, the end. And I don't necessarily need every story in the current era to be about this pull between the light and the dark. I mean, that is ever present in a Jedi's life, absolutely, but I don't think we always need it. We already saw that with Anakin. We saw how that went, and they even toyed with that a little bit with Luke in Return of the Jedi, and they're clearly going that way in the new movies and the sequels with Rey and Kylo Ren and stuff, which is the only stuff I like in the new movies. So I just don't think that we need to have that here. Just make him a Jedi. He's just a good guy. The Force is his ally. He does not use it for the wrong reasons. He does not use it selfishly. Let him be an actual good light side using Jedi. So I loved that answer. Tell us a story. Don't have us make the story as we go. I don't need that in games anymore, you know. I just want you to tell us the story. And so I thought that was the greatest answer. So these are my feelings. I'm hyped. I'm fanboying out. Maybe you have a problem with that, but I don't care. I am a fanboy, and I was nervous because of EA, but so far I'm seeing everything work out right. Great job, Respawn. Love what Stig and Vince seem to be doing in that whole team. I'm over the moon for what seems to be the first good, real Star Wars game in over 10 years, I want to say. I mean, I really think it's been over a decade, so very, very excited. What did you guys think? Did you enjoy this gameplay? Did you enjoy what we saw? Are you disappointed? Maybe you didn't like it. Maybe you still just refuse to trust this game simply because EA is the publisher. You know, I don't feel that way right now, but maybe you do. So whatever you feel, talk about it below. Star Wars goodness. Man, it feels pretty good. So that's it. My first official E3 video, and this video is a wrap. So thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Ro2R Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.